Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Breaker. Welcome to the show, y'all. Look here. Teresa's made a decision. She's moving away. She's moving away and she's taking Cheryl with her. She'll deal with the divorce long distance. They have a relative that lives in another state and she's decided she's leaving. And that's the end of it. She's not telling anybody. She's not telling Terrence. She's not telling Billy. The only people that know that she's leaving are her parents. She wants to tell Billy's parents so that they will understand that they can have visitation with Cheryl all they want, but she's afraid to tell them because they might tell Billy. She's almost certain that they'll tell him. So she packs up everything, and the parents, they keeping everything on the low, and she leaves in the middle of the night. They drive away, and they're gone, and they live in another state. And she settles in down there and she gets another job because she transferred from the hospital she was working. She got a job in a similar hospital in the city that she had moved to in another state. And everything was working out just fine. She was good. After about a month or two, she started to notice that it was this weird car that was always parked out front at the hospital when she got off from work. She didn't pay any attention to it because it's like, well, doesn't necessarily mean it has anything to do with her, but she was almost certain that the person that she saw in the car looked like Billy. She was almost certain of it. And then one day, when she came out of the hospital, she was standing there waiting on the bus because she was, in transition and she was trying to get things straightened out right. So she was trying to save money on gas and it was cheaper to take the bus and all these different type of things. And she looked out there and she saw it was Billy. He was standing outside the car, leaning and looking at her, and it frightened her. And she got on the bus and she noticed that the car started to follow the bus. And he was following them. She didn't have a choice at that time to keep driving or anything like that or not get off the bus, so she got off at a regular stop. And she just stood there panicking, frozen, not knowing what to do. She took a deep breath and she walked over to his car and she told him, "I'm not coming back. We're getting divorced, and if you don't leave me alone, I'm calling the police." And he snatched her, threw her in the car, and he drove away. And he forced her to tell him where she was staying. And she really didn't have a choice in that because she had to pick up Cheryl. She had to. She was in school, so she had to pick her up, and then once they picked her up, Cheryl was excited to see her dad and all this and that, and he put on the show, of course, made it look good. And then they drove home. Now he knows where they live. And he stayed there that night, making it look good for Cheryl. And once she went to bed, he did what he normally does. He beat her. But this time, he didn't only beat her, he assaulted her. You know what I'm saying, right? Trying to force her to take him back. Because see, that inadequacy that he had about himself, his self-esteem and all those issues, he felt that if she just let him love her, so to speak, that she would take him back. She just lay there, emotionless. She didn't smile. She didn't laugh. She didn't do anything. She was frozen. And through her mind, she just kept thinking over and over and over again. Her mind was going to a dark place, y'all. And she was going through scenarios of what to do. Think about that. This animal is having her way with her. She's helpless. And she's trying to figure a way out. And she concludes that it's only one thing that she can do to get out of this. He's got to go. And she's hurting because she doesn't want to hurt Cheryl. But she cannot continue to live like this. She remembers what her professor in college told her. If you don't leave him, it's not going to get better. Well, she left him, and it didn't get better. He followed her, and now he was assaulting her as if he had the right to do that. And it made her angry. It made her angry that she didn't even have control over her body. She didn't have control over her life. And when he finished, he assumed that everything was okay. See, that's what a narcissist does. He assumes that everything's okay. So he says what most men would say in a situation that they're not focusing on the other person. I'm talking about a selfish situation. He said, "Did you like it?" So she got angry and she looked at him. She raised up, put her clothes on, didn't say a word. She went and got in the shower. When she got in the shower, she cried because she knew what she had to do. But she didn't want to do that because she was thinking about her daughter. And then the phone rang. And luck would have it, or fate, whichever one, Terrence was on the other end of the phone. And he had gotten her number from her parents. And he had been on the call for weeks. But something was pushing him. He didn't know what it was. Something was pushing him where she needed him that night. So he got the nerve up and he called her. And when she answered the phone, he could hear it in her voice. And when he said, "It's Terrence, I've been meaning to call you," she burst into tears, crying. And she told him that he's here. And immediately, Terrence said, "I'm on the way." She stood there holding the phone without saying a word. And she hung up. She hung the phone up. And something washed over Terrence and he panicked. He panicked. He called the airport to see if they had any flights out. And they did. He sped to the airport in his car. He got a flight and he was there within the next couple of hours. He found her. She was in the house. Billy was in the house in the bedroom, in the bed sleep. And Cheryl was in her room. He went into the room and he saw Billy laying in the bed. And he was afraid that something had happened, but it was nothing. He was there asleep. And he told her, he said, "Get your stuff." She said, "I'm not running anymore." She said, "Well, what do you want?" He said, "What do you want to do?" And she asked him, she said, "You know what I want to do. Will you help me?" And Terrence said, "No. You're not doing that. You're not throwing your life away for him. You got a daughter in there that's going to need you." And he looked at her, battered and bruised. Battered and bruised. And he told her, he said, "I need you. I need you." And for the first time, she looked at him and she saw something that he always felt, but she never felt. She saw it in his eyes. She saw that he loved her way more than a friend. And she said, "You don't want me." And he told her, "I've always wanted you. Even now, I still love you. I always will. Whether you love me back in that way or not." And he said, "But right now, let's deal with this situation. Tell me what happened." And she told him what happened. And this time, instead of Terrence going into that room and beating him, he told her, he said, "Look, did you take a shower?" She said, "Yes." He said, "We shouldn't have done that." But at the same time, he's telling her that he's going to need her to call the police and tell them what happened. And she did. And they came to the house and they arrested Billy for sexual assault. And if you want to know how this turns out, you're going to have to tune into the next episode, right? It's getting better. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I'll say peace, y'all.
I'm getting so